You are tired. Not just the kind of tired that a night of sleep can fix, but a soul weariness that comes from a lifetime of trying. You've meditated until your legs went numb. You've highlighted every line in your self-help books. You've chased healing, growth, and awakening like they were prizes at the end of a grueling marathon. But here is the question that might sting. What if your very search for the light is what's keeping you in the dark? What if the you that is trying so hard to wake up is the very thing that is keeping you asleep? We live in a culture obsessed with doing. We believe that if we just find the right technique, the right guru, or the right morning routine, we will finally arrive. We treat spiritual awakening as a project, a task, to be completed by the ego. But Carl Jung, the legendary Swiss psychiatrist, saw through this deception. He realized that the final, most terrifying and most transformative stage of the human journey isn't a victory of the will. It isn't about doing more. It is about something far more difficult. It is about stopping. In the next 20 minutes, we are going to dismantle the self-improvement trap. We are going to explore why your effort is your greatest enemy and why, according to Jung, you must stop fighting to finally find what you've been looking for. This is the paradox of the final stage. This is the art of stopping. In the West, we have turned spirituality into a performance. We've taken the ancient wisdom of the East and the deep psychology of Jung and turned them into another way to be better than we were yesterday. This is what we call the spiritual ego. Think about it. When you start your spiritual journey, the ego, that part of you that wants control, recognition, and safety, doesn't just disappear, it simply changes its clothes. Instead of wanting a faster car or a bigger house, it now wants the highest vibration or the deepest enlightenment. It starts judging your progress. It says, "I wasn't mindful enough today," or "Why haven't I reached peace yet?" This is the great irony. The ego is trying to kill the ego. It's like trying to wash away blood with blood. Carl Jung observed that many of his patients were addicted to their own development. They were so busy becoming that they completely forgot how to be. This constant striving creates a split within the psyche. On one side, there is the ideal self. You are trying to reach the calm, awakened, enlightened version of you. On the other side is the actual self, the messy, anxious, human version of you. The more you push toward the ideal, the more you reject the actual. And as Jung famously said, what you resist persists. By trying so hard to wake up, you are implicitly telling yourself that who you are right now is not enough. You are creating a state of internal war. Awakening, however, is not the result of winning that war. It is the result of the war ending. Most people spend years, even decades, in this trap. They believe that if they just push a little harder, they will break through. But you cannot climb a ladder that is leaning against a cloud. The final stage is not a breakthrough. It is a breakdown of the one who is trying to break through. It is the moment you realize that the seeker is the obstacle. To understand why stopping is the answer, we have to understand Jung's map of the soul. At the center of your conscious mind is the ego. It is the I that makes decisions, feels willpower, and navigates the world. But the ego is not the center of the total psyche. Jung taught that the true center is what he called the self, capital S. The self is the totality of who you are, conscious and unconscious, light and dark, human and divine. The ego loves the illusion of control. It thinks it is the captain of the ship. It believes that through willpower and discipline, it can force the psyche into a state of awakening. But the ego is just a small boat on a vast, infinite ocean of the unconscious. You cannot command the ocean. You can only learn to sail with it. Awakening is not something the ego does. It is something that happens to the ego when it finally realizes its own limitations. Jung often spoke of the ego-self axis. In a healthy, awakened person, the ego is in service to the self. But in the modern world, the ego has become a dictator. It tries to manufacture spiritual experiences. It tries to do mindfulness. But have you noticed? The more you try to be mindful, the more self-conscious you become. The more you try to be peaceful, the more frustrated you feel when life gets loud. This is because willpower is a tool of the ego, and the ego is inherently a state of separation. Jung suggested that we cannot find the self by looking for it. That's like a flashlight trying to turn its beam around to see the batteries inside itself. It's impossible. The light cannot see the source of the light. The only way for the flashlight to know its source is to stop shining, to go quiet, and to wait. The illusion of will is the belief that you are the author of your own awakening. Jung challenges this. He suggests that the psyche has an innate drive toward wholeness, what he called individuation. It is a natural process, like a seed growing into a tree. The seed doesn't try to grow. It simply responds to the right conditions. Your only job is to stop creating the wrong conditions with your constant, anxious interference. If stopping is so effective, why is it the hardest thing in the world to do? Why do we feel a sense of panic when we aren't working on ourselves? This brings us to the shadow, the hidden side of our psyche. Jung noted that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Our addiction to doing, even spiritual doing, is often a sophisticated defense mechanism. As long as you are busy meditating, reading, or processing your trauma, you don't actually have to face the raw, unedited silence of your own existence. In that silence, the shadow speaks. In that silence, the feelings you've pushed away for 20 years, the loneliness, the insignificance, the terror of mortality, begin to rise to the surface. Being busy with self-improvement is the ultimate distraction. It allows you to feel like you are making progress while you are actually just running in place to keep the demons at bay. Think about the metaphor of a muddy lake. If you want to see the bottom, what do? Most people jump in with a shovel and start digging, trying to clear the mud. But the more they dig, the muddier the water becomes. They are doing a lot of work, but they are further from the truth than when they started. The shadow of doing is the fear of being nothing. If I stop seeking, who am I? If I stop trying to be a better person, what if I'm actually a bad person? The ego is terrified of the void. It would rather be a miserable seeker than a silent nothing. Jung tells us that we must face this void. We must look at our obsession with growth and realize it is often a flight from our own humanity. We use awakening as a way to escape our problems rather than solve them, but the final stage requires us to stop running. It requires us to sit by the muddy lake, put down the shovel, and watch the silt settle on its own. It requires the courage to be bored, to be empty, and to be untransformed until the transformation happens of its own accord. There is a law in Jungian psychology called enantiodromia. It is a Greek term that means running toward the opposite. It is the principle that everything, when pushed to its extreme, eventually turns into its opposite. If you push your ego toward perfection, it will eventually collapse into chaos. If you push your will to the breaking point, you will experience a burnout. We usually see burnout or spiritual crisis as a failure. We think we did something wrong, but from a Jungian perspective, enantiodromia is a grace. The crisis is the soul's way of forcing you to stop when you refuse to do it yourself. It is the moment the ego's sword finally snaps. Many people only reach the final stage of awakening when they are forced to their knees, when the meditation doesn't work, when the books provide no comfort, and when they are too exhausted to try anymore. They are forced into a state of stopping. And it is in this collapse that the miracle happens. Think of a person trying to stay afloat in the middle of the ocean. They splash and kick and fight the water, trying to stay on top. Eventually, they lose their strength. They stop fighting. They sink. But as they sink, they realize that the water, the very thing they were fighting, is actually capable of holding them up if they just lie still. This is the transition from the ego to the self. The ego stops trying to stay afloat, and the self takes over. This enantiodromia, this total reversal of strategy, is the secret to the final threshold. You don't get there by getting stronger. You get there by becoming so exhausted by your own strength that you finally let go. The stopping is not a choice you make. It is a realization that there is nowhere left to run. So, what does it actually mean to stop? It does not mean you stop living your life, going to work, or caring for your family. It means you stop the internal movement of seeking. In Zen, they call this the gateless gate. In Taoism, it is wu-wei action through non-action. For Jung, it is the moment of active surrender. Stopping means you look at your life, exactly as it is, with all its flaws, pains, and incompletions, and you stop trying to fix it. You stop treating yourself like a broken machine that needs to be repaired. You stop treating the present moment as a stepping stone to a better future moment. When you stop, you finally become present enough to notice that the thing you were seeking, the peace, the connection, the wholeness, was already there, hidden underneath the noise of your seeking. It's like looking for your glasses while you are wearing them. The more frantic your search becomes, the less likely you are to realize they are already on your face. You have to stop moving to feel the weight of the frames on your nose. Awakening is not an achievement, it is a recognition. It is the sudden, quiet realization that there is no distance between you and the divine. The distance was an illusion created by the ego's constant walking. When the walking stops, the distance vanishes. You stop, you sit, you breathe, not as a technique, but because there is nothing else to do. You are not doing meditation, you are being the space in which life happens. This is the final stage. It is the most radical act of rebellion in an overactive world, to be perfectly, absolutely still. Carl Jung once wrote that, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Maybe that's why we